My boyfriend dumped me after a meltdown, blamed me for his misery, and now he's holding my stuff hostage while I try to graduate and get my life back. He broke up with me Saturday night after having a huge meltdown and lost control of his emotions. How do you heal from leaving a toxic cycle where you're almost like a punching bag? He was very miserable and had a lot of trauma to unpack, but the empath in me feels so sad that I'm giving up on him. I want to know if anyone is coming from a side where you blamed everyone else for your own behavior, but grew from it, and if there's any hope of rekindling in the future. I truly cared for him, but I care about myself too and need to let him go right now so we can both heal. He'd say things like, "My life is miserable. As long as we are together, I'm stuck. Anyone with common sense would say we shouldn't be together. You make my life miserable." Don't get me wrong, I am so hurt and betrayed myself for letting these things slide. I was very desensitized, but is it bad for me to hold on to any hope he might actually heal while we are apart? A huge reason I ask is because I give up on finding love and putting energy into a man. I'm 22 and want to grow with my career and get my own place after I graduate. Last thing on my mind is another relationship. He's 25 next month and still struggling to find work. His dad is helping him find a job in finance. He has his own house and pays his bills, but is just going through a rough time after graduating in the summer. I can't see myself falling in love for a long time, but I know what I felt for him before it got bad was real. I truly wanted a future with this man before it got toxic. Sad face. Am I wrong for expecting a man like this to change? Or should I truly let him go? That's the sanitized version I could actually tell to a stranger without immediately feeling like I'm about to throw up. The real thing is Messier. It started as one of those stories that make your friends go, "OMG, I'm so happy for you." And end with me staring at my phone at 3 a.m. replaying voice notes where he's crying, apologizing, then snapping, then apologizing again like whiplash. I kept trying to be the cool, patient girlfriend who understands trauma, like that's my goddamn side hustle. I know people will say I'm young and I'll bounce back. I know, but right now it feels like I fell down a staircase I didn't even realize I was walking on. We met last winter in the most basic way. A mutual friend's birthday at a bar with sticky floors and warm beer. He was quiet the first hour, then suddenly funny, then suddenly too honest in a way that felt refreshing. He talked about his mom's illness when he was in high school and how it made him grow up too fast, how he'd always been the responsible one, and how he just graduated and felt this pressure to be great. I remember thinking he was a little intense, but in a way that meant he cared. He asked for my number like he was asking to hold something fragile. I felt seen, and I hadn't felt seen in a while. In the beginning, he was a walking green flag. He texted good morning. He remembered my midterms. He showed up with coffee to the library and joked with the security guard in a way that made the security guard genuinely like him. He put his hand on the small of my back when we crossed the street in the rain like some rom-com guy. He told me I made him feel calm. I told him he made me feel brave. We slept with our feet tangled, and he would kiss my forehead when he thought I was asleep. And there were little flutters of worry even then, like the way he'd go quiet for 2 days when a job interview went badly, then return with some elaborate explanation that didn't totally add up, or the way he picked fights with his roommate over utility bills like it was a courtroom drama. But I filed it under he's passionate. That's what I called it. Passion. It changed slowly. It always does. He didn't wake up one morning and become a different person. It was more like a stain spreading on a shirt. Small dark edge, then more, and suddenly the whole area is soaked and you can't remember the original color. The first time he snapped at me, it was over something dumb. We were late to his cousin's thing. He was stressed about driving across town. I said, "Let's just Uber." He said, "We're not wasting money." I said, "It's fine, I'll pay." And he whipped around and said too loud, "You think I'm some kind of broke joke? You think I can't handle my own life?" I froze. The car went quiet except for the turn signal. He apologized 5 minutes later, and then for the next 2 days, flowers a long text about how he'd been feeling like a failure. I forgave him because it was so convincing and because I wanted to be convinced. That's the loop he put me through. Something would happen. He'd go dark, push me away, say something mean enough to leave a bruise. And then there'd be this soft flood of apology like a blanket after a slap. And the apology always had an explanation attached. His dad's impossible standards, the job market, his own fear of not being enough for me. It's hard to explain to someone who hasn't been inside it how those apologies can feel like intimacy. Like he's letting you into the control room of his brain. I started to think my role was to sit next to him there and help him pull the right levers. He had a way of describing himself that made me want to hold him. "I'm just built wrong," he'd say. "I'm a miswired robot." He'd joke that he was a rescue dog. Scared of loud noises, needs patience. I'd laugh because it was cute and because it poked at that empath nerve I carry around like a raw wire. But sarcasm contains truth. He meant it. He believed he was broken, and he made it my job to be the mechanics. And I believed if I tried hard enough, I could fix him. I know. I hear how that sounds. But it felt noble at the time. Love is a project. Summer ended and his mood sank. He graduated and his LinkedIn turned into a graveyard of easy apply buttons. He hated the silence after interviews, or worse, the auto-rejection emails that hit in the middle of the night like corporations were laughing at him while he slept. He'd send me screenshots. "We regret to inform you." After careful consideration, he'd pace in his kitchen and say fuck until the word lost its shape. He'd stand in front of his bathroom mirror and say, "You're a joke, bro," to himself like he was his own bully. I would wrap my arms around his back and feel how stiff he was. I'd tell him what I tell myself during finals. "It's a numbers game. You'll get there." He'd nod glassy-eyed, and then 2 hours later, he'd be slamming the cabinet because the cereal box ripped. His dad got involved, which made everything worse. His dad is this old-school, shake-hands-hard kind of guy who calls people champ. He works in finance and carries stress like a trophy. He'd call at 6 a.m. and leave voicemails about opportunities and networking breakfasts and keep your head in the game. And then he'd send PDFs of articles with titles like, "Your 20s are for grinding." When we had dinner at his parents' house, his dad would subtly interrogate me about my major and plans. Marketing huh with that tone. His mom is sweet and tired. She'd bring out extra bread and touch my arm under the table like she knew I was bracing. In September, he moved into the house his grandparents left him. Small, a little lopsided, but his. You'd think owning a house would make someone feel stable. It made him feel trapped. "Everyone thinks I'm set," he said. "I'm a homeowner who can't afford the roof." He'd count bills out loud like they were enemies. I could feel the math pressing on him. He'd make jokes like, "Congrats, babe, you're dating a man with a 30-year mortgage and no job." And he'd laugh, but the laugh sounded like metal. We had our first blowout fight the night his friend Jeff came over. Jeff is one of those guys who loves chaos. He instigates and then sits back to watch. He showed up with whiskey and stories about some girl who blew up his phone. The two of them got loud. I was washing dishes. The sink clogged. The water rose greasy and ridiculous. I asked him to help me. He said, "1 second." I said, "I can't get this thing." He said, "1 fucking second." And the way he said it, you know how a word can spit? Jeff looked at me and smirked like he'd found a crack. I threw the sponge into the sink. It splashed like an insult. He stood up too fast, and his chair scraped, and he said, "Don't pull that face," like I was a child. I said, "Don't talk to me like that." He said, "I'm not dealing with this right now." I said, "You never deal with anything." It spiraled. Jeff's eyes got shiny with excitement. I wanted to punch him. The sink gurgled like it was laughing. When Jeff left, slamming the door for dramatic effect, my boyfriend hit the drywall with his fist. Not a full punch, more like a hard knock, but it left a shallow dent. He stared at it like he couldn't believe his hand had done that. Then he turned to me and said very quietly, "Sometimes I think you want me to be the bad guy." I didn't sleep. He didn't either. We lay on opposite edges of the bed like cliffs. After that, we had a weird truce for a while. He started running in the mornings. He said he needed to burn off the poison. He'd come back pink and sweaty and softer for a few hours. He got an interview at a bank downtown and spent a full day polishing his shoes and tie. He asked me to do a mock interview with him, and I did, and he did great, and then he actually got the call back, and we celebrated with cheap sushi, and I let myself think we were turning a corner. The call back turned into a maybe, the maybe turned into a no, and that's when he started saying the lines that stuck to me like burrs. "My life is miserable. As long as we are together, I'm stuck. Anyone with common sense would say we shouldn't be together. You make my life miserable." That last one felt like a punch every time, and I kept telling myself he didn't mean it. But the repetition matters. The brain doesn't care whether a phrase is fair. It cares that it's repeated. I started doing this thing where I would pre-argue with him in my head so I could be prepared. I'd walk to class and rehearse it. When you say X, I feel Y. I sound like a therapist in my own skull. And I still lost every time because in real life he'd flip it and suddenly I was apologizing. I'd get home and realize I'd said sorry 13 times for shit like the tone of my sigh. He'd accuse me of weird things. If I posted a story and some guy reacted to it, he'd ask why I needed attention. If I left his house earlier than he wanted because I had homework, he'd say I was choosing a grade over us. If I didn't immediately respond to his text, he'd screenshot the timestamp and send a question mark. The pettiness felt like sand in my teeth. At the same time, he'd pull me onto his lap when he was watching something and kiss my wrist and say, "You're the only good thing in my day." The whiplash kept me dizzy and hopeful, and then dizzy again. I started keeping mental tabs. The day he slammed the door and made the picture frame fall, but said it was because the hinge was loose. The night he cried in the shower and asked me to sit on the bath mat so he could hold my hand. The time he threw a water bottle at the wall, plastic not glass, and then immediately picked it up and said, "See, nothing even broke." The way he'd mimic my voice when he was mad higher and snottier like I was this naggy cartoon. He'd apologize, he always apologized, but the apology came with a clause. "I'm sorry, but you know how I get. I'm sorry, but you push my buttons." That little word swallowed the whole sorry. The empathy thing, my so-called superpower, turned into a leash. He'd send me a long text about his day, and I'd feel the need to drop everything to reply thoroughly like I was a customer support agent trying to retain him. He'd say, "You're the only one who understands me," and I'd feel proud in this poisonous way. Meanwhile, my own stuff got smaller. I stopped telling him about my wins because either he'd be genuinely happy and then collapse into self-loathing, or he'd find a way to make it about how he wasn't doing as well. The day I got an internship offer for the spring, I told him, and he hugged me and said, "This is amazing." And then 5 minutes later, he said, "I don't know why I'm not getting anything. Maybe I'm just not meant for this." He went to the bathroom and stayed in there for 20 minutes. I sat on the couch with my good news curling into a dull ache. I hated how I resented him for stealing the shine from my own life. I hated myself for needing validation he couldn't give. Right before the big meltdown, we had a week that looked normal from a distance. We cooked. We watched a stupid show about people living on boats. He changed a light bulb and crowed about it like he'd save a town. We held hands and walked through a Halloween store and laughed at the costumes. Nothing dramatic, just a nice thin layer of okayness. It felt like waking up healthy after a fever and almost forgetting what the fever felt like. Saturday blew all that up. It wasn't one thing. It was a whole day of small things that stacked into a tower, and then someone bumped the table. He'd been up late the night before gaming with friends. He woke up already on edge. He had a text from his dad, a link to a job posting with "apply now" in all caps. He rolled his eyes and threw the phone onto the bed and missed, and it clattered onto the floor. "Of course," he said. He was out of coffee. He gulped water and said water tastes like metal in the mornings. He said he felt a pressure headache from existing. I suggested we get breakfast. He asked me to drive because he didn't have gas. I said okay. I said okay to everything that morning like I was a button. At the diner, the waitress messed up his order. He asked for over medium eggs and got over easy. "It's nothing. It's eggs." He stared at them like they were an insult. The waitress came back and he said with this brutal smile, "I asked for over medium." She said, "Oops, sorry, I'll fix it." And he said, "It's okay." And then when she walked away, he muttered, "It's not okay." I felt a little flicker in my chest that I recognized. Fear. The eggs came back and he poked them. He said, "Can we just go?" I said, "You haven't eaten." He stood up. I grabbed my bag. We left cash on the table like an apology. On the drive back, he started, "I don't think this is working," he said out of nowhere like a blade. The car was suddenly too small. My stomach fell. I said, "What?" He said, "You don't get me." I said, "I literally spend hours getting you." He said, "That's the problem. You think I'm a project." I said, "I think you're a person I love." He laughed that laugh that isn't a laugh and said, "If you loved me, you'd let me figure this out alone." I said, "I would, but you keep pulling me in and pushing me away." He said, "You're making me the villain." I said, "You're making me the punching bag." By the time we pulled up to his place, voices were raised. He told me I was controlling. I told him he was cruel. He said I wanted him to be dependent on me. I said I wanted him to stop treating me like a punching bag. He said, "Stop saying that," and slammed the front door hard enough to shake the frame. He paced. He grabbed his hair. He said he couldn't breathe. He said, "You don't understand what it's like inside my head." I said, "You don't understand what it's like inside mine." He said, "I'm miserable." And then that line again, "You make my life miserable." Something snapped in me. I sat down on the floor of his hallway because my legs suddenly felt hollow. He looked at me like I'd done the dramatic thing. I said, "Do you hear yourself?" He said, "Do you hear yourself?" It felt like a mirror hall, and I wanted to throw a rock. Then he did the meltdown, like full meltdown. He punched his own chest with the side of his fist. He said he hated himself. He kicked the wall, lightly like he knew better, but still. He said, "Everybody blames me for everything." He said, "You'll leave and tell everyone I'm a monster." I said, "I don't need to tell anyone anything. You're doing this in front of me." And that's when he went really quiet and said, "We're done." Calm, dead calm. He said, "We're done. I can't be with someone who makes me feel like this." He took the necklace he gave me off my neck and put on the hall table. The gesture was so weirdly gentle it made me nauseous. He walked into the bedroom, grabbed a duffel, and tossed in a hoodie and a couple of shirts like he was staging a movie scene. I stood up and my vision white noised at the edges. I left. I told him I wasn't doing this. He said, "Good." He said this is what needed to happen. He said I'd thank him one day. I drove to my apartment and sat in the parking lot with my hands still gripping the wheel and sobbed like a teenager. Then I went upstairs and took off my shoes and got in the shower with my socks still on like my brain forgot how to human. I made a list of every time he'd hurt me in the Notes app and then deleted it because the list looked like I was trying to convince myself. I told 2 friends and got 2 different flavors of comfort. One calm, one ragey. The ragey one said he's a manipulative asshole. The calm one said he's a hurt person who hurts people. Both can be true. I lay in bed with that sentence in my mouth like a coin. Sunday, I did the breakup rituals. I put my phone on D&D and failed to not check it. I took her photos down and put them in the trash folder, then took them out, then put them back in. I cried over a kitchen sponge because it reminded me of that stupid fight with Jeff. I made tea and forgot about it and found it cold and drank it anyway. I drafted a text I didn't send. "I love you, but I can't keep doing this." I drafted another. "You win." I felt nauseous when I remembered his words in the diner. "It's not okay." The space in my apartment felt bigger and emptier and too quiet, and then it felt too loud because my brain wouldn't stop narrating everything in his voice. I tried to go for a walk and ended up calling my mom, who gave me mom words like "in time" and "focus on school" and "you deserve better." And I know she's right, but I also hear them like you hear the safety instructions on an airplane after you've already taken off. Important but abstract. Monday morning, I went to class and took notes I can't remember. I stared out the window and imagined him in his kitchen staring at the dent in the drywall, and I wanted a text to ask if he was okay, and I wanted to never ever speak to him again. The brain is an idiot. In the afternoon, I checked Instagram and saw he had removed a couple photos. It hit me like a slap, even though I had done the same. It's like, oh, it's real. I deleted ours too, then felt petty, then felt relief, then felt grief. Then Monday night, he texted me, "I'm sorry." That's it. 2 words. My heart did that traitor leap. I didn't reply. Half an hour later, he wrote, "I saw you removed our photos. Ick, why that bothered me so much, but it did. I shouldn't have texted. Sorry." He sent in 2 messages like he couldn't stop the second one once it started. I typed "it hurts" and then deleted it. I typed "I miss you" and then deleted it. I typed "we hurt each other and I can't keep doing that" and then deleted it because it felt like I was writing for an audience. I put the phone face down and put on the carpet like it could catch fire. He has my things. That's what my brain keeps snagging on, like it needs something practical to hold. He has my hoodie that I stole back in May, and my running shoes I lent him, and my stupid hair clip that holds all my hair, and the book I lent him that I actually care about. He said he'd let me know later in the week when he could drop them off. He said it almost like a favor. And now I'm stuck in the limbo of logistics that follows the apocalypse of a breakup. Do I let him come? Do I tell him to leave them with a neighbor? Do I pack his stuff and trade on a sidewalk like some hostage exchange? Do I see his face and crumble, or do I go cold and scare myself? Part of me keeps replaying all the maybe versions. Maybe if he'd gotten that job. Maybe if his dad backed off. Maybe if I had swallowed my words more. Maybe if I had swallowed fewer. Maybe if we had gone to a couple's therapist early. He always said he wanted to go, and then he'd say he couldn't afford it, and then he'd say he didn't want a stranger in his head, and then he'd say he'd go if I made the appointment, and then if I tried, he'd say it felt like a trap. I got a whole museum of maybes. They all have plaques, untitled, I could have saved us. I walk through it at night. The worst part, I hate admitting this, is I miss him. Him underneath all the noise. The way he'd tuck a blanket around my feet when we watched a movie. The way he'd narrate the lives of strangers on the bus in a way that was mean and funny and somehow gentle all at once. The stupid faces he'd make to get me to laugh when I was stressed. The hope he had in the morning, sometimes before the world piled on. I miss the idea of us. And I miss the me who believed I could help him carry his life. I know the word for what he did. It's not a medical diagnosis, it's a pattern. He projected. He blamed. He made me responsible for how he felt. He punished me when I couldn't fix him. He made me doubt my memory. He'd say, "You're exaggerating," and I'd shrink even if I knew I wasn't. He made me feel like the only one who could hold him and also the reason he needed holding. That's the trap. You become both the nurse and the infection. And he's not a monster. That's the hardest part. If he were a monster, I could walk away and spit and never look back. He's a man who is hurting and taking the hurt out like garbage and accidentally leaving it on my front step every day. I want to believe he can change. I hold that hope in my mouth like a pill I'm not sure I should swallow. But then I replay what he said Saturday. "You make my life miserable." I replay the way he looked at me like I was the problem and the solution and the judge at the same time. I replay the dent in the wall. I replay my heart small and tired saying, "I can't do this." I am 22. I want a small apartment with a plant that doesn't die. I want a job where I'm challenged and not exploited. I want laughter that doesn't feel like a break between disasters. I want the right things. I think the right thing is to let him go. He texted me again last night. I'll LMK later in the week when I can drop them off. The casual shorthand broke me a little. Like, oh, we're doing this with abbreviations. LMK, the poetry of post-disaster logistics. I typed, "Please just leave them with the front desk," and didn't send it. I typed, "Can we talk?" and didn't send it. I typed nothing and put my phone under my pillow like I was 14 again, hiding something from my mom. I keep imagining two drop-off scenarios. In the first, he leaves the bag on my doormat and walks away. No goodbye, no note, just a bag with a hoodie that probably still smells like him, and the book and the hair clip wrapped in a paper towel like a small dumb relic. I come home and see it and feel relief and grief hit at the same time, and I sit on the floor and go through the items like a widow. In the second he knocks, I open. He stands there with his head tilted, that look he gets when he's trying to be charming, and he says, "Can we just talk for a minute?" And I either say yes and get pulled back into the rinse cycle, or I say no and watch his eyes go hard. In neither scenario do I feel good. My friends say to be clean about it. Make it boring. Logistics only. Thanks for dropping my things. Please don't contact me. Block and move on. They say it like it's how you make a sandwich. And maybe they're right. I keep thinking of him as a set of potential futures. There's the future where he gets a job in therapy and texts me next spring, and we try again, and it's better. There's the future where he spirals, and I watch from the sidelines and feel this awful combination of guilt and relief. There's the future where I forget him slowly the way you forget a dream. You remember the headline and a few weird scenes, but the emotional weather drains out of it. I don't know which one is real. I only know it's Tuesday morning, and my hands still shake when I think about Saturday night. If he came on here and told his side, I can pretty much write it for him. He'd say he was under pressure. He'd say he felt trapped. He'd say I was always analyzing him, always trying to fix him, always making him feel like a case study. He'd say I didn't celebrate him enough when he did little things. He'd say I took things personally. He'd say I didn't trust him and that made him feel small. He'd leave out how he threw his words like darts at my soft parts. He'd leave out how he weaponized his apology. He'd leave out how he put his unhappiness on me like a coat I didn't want to wear. Or maybe he wouldn't leave those out. Maybe he'd say them and still not hear what they mean. I think about his dad in this future too, like a Greek chorus yelling through a Bluetooth headset. Are you grinding? Did you email the guy? Did you go to that breakfast? The son takes the dad's voice and folds it into his own until he hands it to me like a hot potato. I wish I could unsolder those wires for him. I wish for his sake that he notices the dent in the wall and sees it as a message, not just damage. If anyone's reading this who has been on his side, the one who blamed and then learned, I do want to hear how it clicked for you. Was it a therapist calling your bullshit kindly? Was it losing someone and actually feeling the loss as a consequence instead of just another reason to hate yourself? Was it meds or journaling or getting older and seeing your patterns? I'm not asking because I want to wait for him like some tragic heroine. I'm asking because I don't want to carry this feeling that I failed him. I know that's narcissistic in its own way. It centers me in his story, but I've been centered there for a year. It's hard to cut yourself out. I'm trying to do basic things right now. Eat, sleep, turn my assignments, go to the internship orientation, and act like I'm not made of wet tissue. I deleted our chat thread, so I can't scroll up and cut myself. I put our photos in a folder called Archive, which felt gentle and final at the same time. I rescued my own playlist from all the songs he added. I put the necklace he gave me in a little jewelry dish, and I don't look at it. My brain is like, we can be mature about this. And my heart is like, please, no more maturity. I'm tired. He broke up with me Saturday. He texted me Monday night after seeing I removed our photos, but then he got upset and said he shouldn't have texted me. He says he'll let me know later in the week when he can drop my things off. I'm rehearsing a script where I'm calm and clear and kind. It goes like this. Please leave the bag with the front desk. I wish you well. I'm focusing on my life. Please don't contact me. And then I block him. And then I grieve what was good without romanticizing what was bad. And then I move forward with my career, my apartment, my tiny plant that hopefully doesn't die. And then maybe months from now, I'll look back and see both of us more clearly. Two people who loved each other and didn't know how to carry that love without it scraping us raw. He broke up with me Saturday night after having a huge meltdown and lost control of his emotions. How do you heal from leaving a toxic cycle where you're almost like a punching bag? He was very miserable and has a lot of trauma to unpack, but the empath in me feels so sad that I'm giving up on him. I want to know if anyone is coming from his side where you blamed everyone else for your own behavior, but grew from it. And if there's any hope of rekindling in the future. I truly cared for him, but I care about myself too and need to let him go right now so we can both heal. He'd say things like, my life is miserable. As long as we are together, I'm stuck. Anyone with common sense would say we shouldn't be together. You make my life miserable. Don't get me wrong, I'm so hurt and betrayed myself for letting these things slide. I was very desensitized. But is it bad for me to hold on to any hope he might actually heal while we are apart? A huge reason I ask is because I give up on finding love and putting energy into a man. I am 22 and want to grow with my career and get my own place after I graduate. Last thing on my mind is another relationship. He's 25 next month and still struggling to find work. His dad is helping him find a job in finance. He has his own house and pays his bills, but is just going through a rough time after graduating in the summer. I can't see myself falling in love for a long time, but I know what I felt for him before it got bad was real. I truly wanted a future with this man before it got toxic. Sad face. Am I wrong for expecting a man like this to change? Or should I truly let him go? One last thing. We broke up Saturday. He texted me an apology Monday night after seeing I removed our photos, but then he got upset, saying he shouldn't have texted me, and has my things. He said he'll come later in the week when he can drop them off, but I'm so scared if he's going to want to talk or if he's just going to leave without a word. I don't know how to handle this part. My opinion, not the asshole. He's told you in plain words that being with you makes him miserable. Believe him. That's not love, that's blame. You don't fix that with more empathy or patience. You leave. Wanting a partner to treat you with basic respect isn't expecting too much. It's the bare minimum. Let him do his healing without you as the crash mat. Arrange a clean handoff for your stuff block if needed and focus on your own life. You saw love. He sees a mirror for his misery. Good luck, OP. So guys, what do you think of this story?